Is this correct or wrong? Wrong. Then what is right? They said successful people will continue to knock the door till the door of success opens. Not long ago, I came to the city called Bangalore with 10 rupees in my pocket. I was an introvert. I had no mentor. I had no friends. I was from a very poor family. But there's one thing I had in plentiful: confidence and willpower and the passion to come up in life. My father worked for the gold mines. He was a telephone operator. He earned 66 rupees a month. That only lasted to put food only for 10 days on the table. We were a family of 10, and I was the youngest of my 7 brothers and sisters. I always dreamed to be a pilot. But since we were poor, most of the times we just could not barely have 2 meals a day. I used to walk 5 miles to school. Very often my father used to go to the pawnbrokers to pledge jewels to get money to put food on the table. It's a very hard way to live, but that's how I grew up. My first setback in life came when my mother died when I was 3 years old. I was brought up by my sister, who was 13 years old at that time. My biggest setback in my life, I had a deadly disease. The disease is, I used to stutter and stammer. I could not talk one line very clearly to anybody. By virtue of that, I became an introvert. But with my family's support, I told myself, I don't want to stay alive, I want to be alive. With this, I kept moving, and one fine day, my brother came to Bangalore to take up a job. So my father told me, son, let's go to Bangalore. I was 8 years old, and my father's brother and all his cousins lived in Bangalore. So we went to see my brother, and at 4 o'clock that day, my father said, son, how about spending the night in Bangalore? I was ecstatic. I was so happy that I can spend that one day in this lovely city. So my father took me to his brother's house. That's my uncle's house. And once we went there, sat down after speaking for some time, my father asked my uncle, can we stay that night? They refused. Humiliated! I and my father walked to the bus station to take the bus to my hometown. And that day I told myself, Bangalore, I am coming back. Fast forward 10 years, 1983, I came into Bangalore. I was studying. I used to cycle on my cycle 15 kilometers a day. That time IT was at a nascent stage. Not many people knew in 1985, 86 what was IT, because one PC was as big as a room in those days, right? So it was very hard to live. And once I finished my IT course, I was searching for a job. 33 interviews, I was turned down. Unlike today, they come to the campus. Right? They come to the campus and pick you up. The 33rd person decided to give me a job as a marketing executive. Wearing a tie and a briefcase. I used to go to my office before my peon could pull up the shutters. And I used to leave my office by closing the shutters. My salary was 300 rupees a month. I was paying 6 rupees a day, staying in a lodge called Modern Lodge, sharing a room, using a common bathroom, and in the balance money for my food, and I was also helping my father, what little money I can give him, because we were poor. And I wanted to come up in my life. In 3 years, I was made the CEO of the company. Not by chance, but by choice. Because I was asked to do typing, I was asked to do packing boxes. Daytime I used to go on marketing, and sometimes when we had guests in my office, and if our peon was on leave, my boss used to ask me to serve tea. You know that very famous 6 rings with 6 glasses? I served tea also to my boss. But in 3 years, he couldn't let me go. He thought that this guy is a brilliant guy, and he made me the CEO of the company. And nothing could be better. Somebody is earning 300 bucks a month in a matter of 3 years, 5,000. And then my boss said, Claudius, I'll give you a bike. The Suega, where you have to reverse, for it to start. And I was so happy coming to Bangalore and having this bike, right? Everything was going fine till one day I heard my boss talking to another director in the company, doubting my integrity. My heart contracted and my brain exploded. I wanted to walk in and lash out at them. I've been brought up from a family which has great values. How can anybody think in this world that I can sell my soul for money? At that time, I moved from a lodge to a paying guest accommodation on Burnley Street, paying 500 bucks a month. Breakfast free. That's how I came up. And now I decided to quit, because if somebody doubts your integrity, it's time for you to move on. So I gave my company 2 months notice, trained my successor. 1988, 1st February, I went to a hiring shop called Saleh Ahmed, hired 2 tables, 6 chairs, took a telephone tapping from my landlord. Claudius the entrepreneur was born. Do you know what was my bank balance? 5,000 rupees. And I decided I'm going to start a business. A small room, 70 square feet. And those phones on those days were all the buttons on the receiver itself. And then I walked in the morning and said, this is my first day in business. I used to work 16, 18 hours a day. I did not know what was breakfast, lunch or dinner. All I wanted to know, I wanted to come up in my life. I wanted to support my family in my life. I wanted to see better days in my life. And that's what I wanted. In a matter of 11 months, I made enough money to buy a car. Wow. You can imagine, here's a poor little boy from a small town called Colorado Fields, who had only 2 meals a day. Father is a telephone operator, gets into business, and 11 months makes enough money to buy a car. Nothing could be better. To all the youth here, beware what's coming next. Right? If you become successful so fast, what happens to you? Success goes. In a matter of 3 years, I started 4 more companies. And all different companies from different fields. And one of them, I acquired a pub. Mexican pub. I started a chit fund company, not knowing anything about chit funds. Right? But I thought, nothing can stop me now. Because when you are successful at that age, and that's the time plastic card was coming into being. So I used to very often say, now it's time to go to a 5-star and taste the masala dosa. It's so beautiful to be, because I would not have seen the gates of the 5-star. right? But with this newfound success, we started these multiple businesses, all with new co-founders. And we didn't care to do any due diligence because our first company is a rock solid foundation, absolutely brilliant, and there's nothing that can stop us now. But we were wrong. One by one, our decisions began to fail. As our decisions failed, every business which went down the line, the co-founder left and left the liability on me. Before I can realize, 4 companies, entire liabilities, whatever funding we took from the bank, everything came and landed onto my lap. I was feeling so hopeless, and that year, darkness descended in my life when my father died. My father was my mentor, my guide, my friend. He was my God. But he passed away. And when he passed away, it was in between my father's death and my total meltdown, I got married. How stupid a person can be. But that's what happened to me. I got married, a poor soul of a very rich family from Bombay decided to give the daughter to me. And here was I, slaughtered, wounded, shattered, soaked in failure. I couldn't go back to my wife and say that I'm failed. I'm a failure. I've lost everything to a stage. I had to park my car because I couldn't afford petrol, and I decided to take my bike. And my wife was wondering, this guy, only a few months ago, 6 months ago, I got, engaged with this guy. A lovely, wonderful personality and smiling, and what's happening to him? But that was the truth. As I was picking the bits and the pieces of my life, I got the final blow. When my only co-founder called me on a Sunday and said, let's wind up. I could not speak. It was a sudden collapse of confidence. I looked at him, I said, give me 30 days. If we don't turn around this company, we will shut down. You go your way, I will go my way. I went back to the home that day very, very dejected, could not eat, very low in depression. That night I could not sleep. I lay down on my bed, looking at the ceiling. I didn't want to live anymore. I was contemplating to take the drastic decision which many people take. I did not know what to do. It was raining very heavily that day. At 12 midnight, something told me, and I looked up to the heavens and said, actually, there is the word people say that God gives people a second chance. So why not I give myself a second chance? Next morning I wake up with my fist clenched. The sun was beaming through my window. I felt I had a new power of my life, a new meaning of my life. And I told myself, I'm not going to go down that way. I'm not going to burn up like a steak. My life is important, and so is my future. I'm going to rise and not fall. Right? I'm going to live and not die. Do you know where I got all this courage from? Bangalore Toastmasters. Because I joined Toastmasters when I was working. When the first I came to Bangalore. And then I decided that nothing is going to stop me on whatever I'm going to do. And then the next day, I got onto my job and I went on my bike. It's a very long story which I put it in my book. But however, from the next day I started going on field, and to my amazement, things started getting better. There are certain orders which were lying in the background for many years or many months started started emerging. If you call that providence, you call that luck, or whatever you want to call it, you can. But things started getting better. And after 1992, beware, mind you, whatever I touched, the press wrote a story that I got the Midas touch. I continued with the business this time with a very proper planning, and then we expanded our business, and the rest is history. I gathered courage in the sifting dunes. I braved the journey, and then in 2012 I came out with my first book. The book is called Echoes of Footprints, a story of tragedy, struggle, sacrifice, and triumph. From misery to hope, mediocrity to excellence. Where my father changed and turned a scar into a shining star. Not knowing when the next meal will come from, he decided that I'm going to take my family to the promised land. And that's where we narrate in this book on what it is. And then in 2016, I thought I should document my life journey, because there's no entrepreneur who's made it in this world without a string of failures. And then that's when I came out with my next book called I, Calmer CEO. Right? Where narrating my stories of my life, how the challenges which I went through, how I failed, and how I bounced back. And what I'm sharing with you today is not to tell you my poverty, because I didn't have food, I didn't succeed in my life. But the fact of life is, in life, it's one thing to be happy, it's another thing to be useful, right? Today we eat more, we drink more, we listen to more music, we gossip more, we do a lot of things more. But that doesn't give us lasting happiness. There's one small, fragile lady who actually changed my life. She said, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone and ensure I create ripples so that the world can change. And that lady was Mother Teresa. And that's what I tell the world. Dreams are something you dream and you don't stop. Some people dream and hold on to the dream. There are some people who actually chase the dream, but there are chosen few who actually live the dream.